Aliens laughed at captured old human until he said, "You are predator." The Vraektar had never seen anything quite like the human. He was old, by their reckoning, nearly at death's door. Wrinkled skin, gray-streaked hair, a hunched posture that suggested fragility. They had dragged him from the wreckage of a stealth shuttle that had tried to breach their planetary perimeter, the last survivor among a dozen corpses scattered in blackened gear. When they pulled him aboard the cruiser Korther's Fangs, even the guards had laughed. "Look at it," one hissed in Vraek the Dominion's tongue. "So soft, barely armored. No claws, no fangs. Didn't even fight back," another said. "Must be their elder. Perhaps they send the old to spy." They locked him in a containment cell of reinforced bioglass, far more security than needed. Really. The Vraektar were proud warriors, descended from predatory stock on a savage homeworld. Strength and fear ruled their society. Everything else was meat. To them, humans were amusing, bipedal vermin with technology far beyond their instincts. The Vraektar had studied Earth after the first skirmishes. The data had been clear. Humans were disorganized, squishy, impulsive. Their cities burned easily. Their soldiers died loudly. But there was something off about this one. He sat cross-legged on the cold floor, silent, eyes closed. No fear, no pleading, no flinching when they slammed the wall or flashed weapons near the barrier. The alien interrogator, Commander Viskel, a decorated butcher of over 20 species, stepped into the observation chamber. The human's file floated in his visor. Marcus Reed. Age, 68 Earth years. Former military. Rank, Colonel. Viskel scoffed. "You? A warrior? You're a relic." Reed opened one eye, then both. His stare was unsettling, not wide with fear, but narrowed with focus. "You speak English?" Viskel asked. Reed nodded once. "Enough to hear you talk nonsense." Viskel bared his fangs, amused. "We have crushed your colonies, vaporized your fleets. You are a dying ember, a species of prey pretending at power." Reed tilted his head. "That right. Don't feign ignorance," Viskel snarled. "The Vraektar are apex predators. Do you know what that means, human?" Reed slowly rose to his feet. Even hunched, he stood nearly at eye level with Viskel. There was a subtle tension in his frame, like something coiled and waiting. "You call yourself apex predators," he said. His voice was gravel and steel. "But let me tell you something." The room quieted. The alien guards turned toward the human, waiting for the inevitable plea or protest. Instead, Reed leaned in close to the glass, his voice a whisper just loud enough to cut through the silence. "You are predators, but we are ultimate predators." Viskel blinked. The phrase meant nothing to him. A translation glitch, perhaps, or some kind of cultural boast. "You think yourselves kings of the food chain," Reed continued, stepping back. "But we're not like the creatures you've conquered. We don't chase for hunger or kill for sport." He looked Viskel dead in the eyes. "We hunt for vengeance. We adapt. We endure. We learn. We don't stop. Ever." The Vraektar stared, uncertain how to react. One guard chittered awkwardly, trying to break the tension. Empty words. "The human is broken." But Viskel said nothing. He just watched the human pace back to the center of the cell and sit once more, cross-legged and calm. Later that night, Viskel replayed the footage alone in the chamber. He slowed the moment when Reed spoke that line again. Ultimate predators. Something about the way he said it. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a promise. And on the fourth watch, Viskel noticed something terrifying. When Reed had stood, when he'd leaned in, he had been smiling. The Vraektar didn't understand fear. Not really. Their kind hunted with tooth and talon long before discovering fire or flight. Fear was for prey. But now, aboard the Korther's Fangs, fear was beginning to spread. Not among the captured, but the captors. It began subtly. Two guards, posted outside Marcus Reed's cell, began refusing solo duty. One claimed he saw the human standing motionless in the dark, eyes open, lips moving in silent speech. The other insisted Reed never slept, just waited. Viskel dismissed the concerns as superstition. He knew better. Fear was a weakness, and Reed was a dying man in a cage. but the signs mounted. Systems in the brig began glitching. Cameras looped, lights flickered, and one morning, a guard was found unconscious with no memory of what had happened. Just a missing sidearm and a fractured helmet. Still, they kept interrogating Reed. They tried chemicals. He smiled through the burning. They brought in pain engines calibrated to disrupt nervous systems. He gritted his teeth and laughed when it ended. "You really think this is new?" He rasped, blood running from his nose. "I've been shot, stabbed, and burned by my own kind. This is just another training day." Viskel finally demanded answers. "What are you?" he growled across the glass. Reed's eyes, bloodshot but sharp, locked onto his. "You call us weak," he said, "because you don't understand how we fight. You look for teeth and claws. We build weapons. We build wars. You wage war like animals. Loud, brutal, predictable. We do it like surgeons." He leaned forward. "You know what makes us dangerous, Viskel? It's not muscle. It's obsession. It's our ability to look at a monster, study it, and learn how to kill it with a rock, a trap, or just a sharpened stick. And when we die, others come, smarter, meaner, angrier." Viskel spat. "Your threats are meaningless. The Dominion has crushed species greater than yours." "Yeah," Reed said, "but none like us." He paused, then told them a story. 1,000 years ago, there were lions on Earth. Real apex predators. Fast, strong, perfect hunters. And you know what we did? He stared straight through the glass. "We painted them on our caves. And then we killed them." Another pause. "We hunted them to extinction." Viskel opened his mouth to retort, but found nothing. Something in Reed's tone, cold, factual, left him uneasy. Reed stood up and stretched, slow and deliberate. The guards flinched. "I don't need to escape," he said. "I just need time." "Time for what?" Viskel demanded. Reed smiled again, and that was worse than any threat. "To remind you what fear really feels like." That night, everything changed. A blackout hit the lower decks. Just a momentary pulse, but enough. When power returned, the containment cell was empty. No alarms had triggered. No breaches recorded. Only a message etched into the inside of the cell wall, scrawled with blood. "Now I hunt." Viskel stood frozen, staring at the words. For the first time in decades, he felt something foreign crawl up his spine. Not confusion, not anger, but fear. Elsewhere on the ship, in a darkened maintenance duct, Marcus Reed waited, silent, patient, watching the patrols move past. The hunt had begun. The first death was quiet. A junior Vraektar technician entered the maintenance shaft to repair the blackout relay. He never came out. His body was found hours later, throat slit with a sharpened fragment of his own armor plating. His eyes were still open, his weapon untouched. There was no sign of a struggle. Viskel stood over the corpse, lips curled in a snarl. "He's unarmed. Old. Alone." "No," murmured his second-in-command. "He's human." Reed didn't attack from the shadows again for some time. Instead, he let the fear do the work. He used the ship's infrastructure like a jungle, crawling through service tubes, bypassing sensors with stolen access cards, sabotaging climate systems. Cold swept through certain corridors, others filled with dense, artificial fog. Lights flickered at irregular intervals. Emergency doors locked and unlocked at random. The Vraektar were creatures of dominance, structure, control. Now, their ship was no longer theirs. Messages began to appear on walls and terminals. "You think I'm trapped in here with you? You are not hunters. You are meat. Apex status revoked." A squad was dispatched to flush the lower decks. 10 heavily armed soldiers, armored in blast plates, visors sealed. They moved in tight formation, disciplined, alert. Only 2 came back. One had his mandible torn off. The other couldn't speak at all. He just stared ahead, trembling, as if he'd glimpsed something far worse than death. The Vraektar began to whisper about Reed like he was a ghost. They claimed he moved through the vents like smoke, that he knew the ship better than they did, that he could hear thoughts. The truth was simpler and far worse. Marcus Reed was a human with nothing to lose and everything to avenge. He wasn't just surviving. He was conducting psychological warfare. In a stolen control node near engineering, he sat calmly cross-legged, listening to their comms chatter. Panic, confusion, fractured discipline. He smiled. He hadn't even fired a weapon yet. Predators, he muttered. You call yourselves predators. But predators don't scream like that. Using a capture tablet, Reed triggered a localized oxygen drain in Barracks 3. Just enough to induce light hypoxia. Not enough to kill. The result was chaos. Vraektar's soldiers staggering out into the corridor, disoriented and gasping, collapsing from dizziness and fear. He left one of their own dead outside the barracks door. Propped up in a sitting position, staring at them, a message burned into his chest plate. You breathe because I allow it. Commanders held emergency briefings. They considered venting whole sections of the ship, burning the ducts, locking down the armory. Nothing worked. Every plan, every attempt to corner him failed. Reed was always one step ahead. When they tried luring him into a trap using his old gear as bait, he left the squad, strung up from the ceiling, disarmed, unconscious, alive, with a recording set to loop over the intercom. I don't need weapons. You brought me to one. Then came music. It echoed through the halls in the earth tongue, strange and rhythmic. A haunting, thumping sound, painted black by the Rolling Stones. Viskel didn't understand the words, but the effect on his warriors was immediate. Their morale shattered further. One soldier discharged his plasma rifle at Shadows and was confined to Med Bay, weeping. We cannot fight this madness, one officer said. It is poison. It seeps into everything. No, Viskel growled. It is not madness. It is human warfare. He stood before the command dais and gave the order. Seal the bridge. Prepare the self-destruct failsafe. If we can't kill him, we make sure he dies with us. Elsewhere, in the dark, Reed adjusted the alien device he'd reprogrammed. A coded signal pulsed silently from the ship, broadcasting coordinates and classified Vraektar fleet movements to deep space. Someone out there would be listening. He stood up and moved toward the next phase of his war. They had mocked him. Now they feared him, and they hadn't even seen what he could really do yet. The Korther's Fangs was no longer a warship. It was a haunted tomb. Half the crew was dead or missing. The rest were locked behind sealed blast doors, paranoid and starving, watching for movement in every shadow. Systems flickered between Reed's control and the bridges. Surveillance was a joke. Orders went unanswered. Power surged and died like a heartbeat under stress. In the darkness of the lower decks, Marcus Reed prepared for the end. He'd scavenged armor from fallen Vraektar, rigged energy cells into traps, and mapped the ship like a predator marks its hunting ground. Every corridor was a kill zone. Every vent was a blade in the back. He knew the layout. He knew the panic. And most of all, he knew Viskel would make a last move. The Vraektar warlord didn't disappoint. On the bridge, Viskel paced like a caged beast, the walls around him humming with the tension of overloaded power. This ends now, he growled to the remaining officers. We bait him. We draw him in. I want his head on this deck. The bait was obvious, too obvious. A personal transmission routed directly into the ship's intercom system. Colonel Marcus Reed, Viskel said, voice low and controlled. I offer you a warrior's duel. Just you and me. No weapons. No traps. I will show you the strength of a true apex predator. There was silence. Then a reply crackled through the bridge's speakers, casual and cold. Sounds good, Reed said. But I don't need a duel. You'll come to me. Viskel snarled. You hide in shadows. A hunt in shadows, Reed replied. Big difference. And then the lights died. The bridge descended into chaos. Alarms screeched, consoles sparked. Environmental controls dumped cold vapor into the vents. Viskel roared and grabbed his blade. He barely made it through the sealed door before it exploded. Reed was already inside. The old human moved with brutal efficiency, using speed, misdirection, and momentum. Viskel swung hard, but Reed ducked low, driving a blunt alien tool into the warlord's leg. Bones snapped. Viskel screamed. You think pain scares me? He shouted. It should, Reed said, because it's the only thing you'll feel before the end. The fight raged through the flickering bridge. Viskel's strength was overwhelming, but it wasn't enough. Reed fought like a machine. Every strike was precise, every motion planned. He didn't fight to win. He fought to finish. When it was over, Viskel lay on the floor, blood pooling beneath him, mandibles twitching. Reed crouched beside him. "You wanted to see the ultimate predator," he said softly. "Now you understand." Viskel gurgled something. A curse, a plea, maybe both. Reed left him there, dying, and walked to the main console. He linked the comms to the ship's long-range beacon and began transmitting on open frequencies. The message was short, cold, measured. "This is Colonel Marcus Reed of Earth. The Vraektar Dominion declare humanity prey. They captured me, mocked me, and underestimated us. I've returned the favor. This ship is no longer theirs. It belongs to no one. And this message is not a warning. It's a promise. We don't start wars, but we finish them." He ended the message, tagged it with high-priority encryption keys, and added one final transmission: the ship's location and fleet data, broadcast across every known Vraektar channel. Then he set the core to overload. 22 minutes later, a flash lit the edge of a red dwarf system. Korthur's fangs vaporized in a pulse of white fire. There were no survivors, but across the galaxy, the message lived on. Vraektar warlords listened in stunned silence. Pirate lords and minor empires played it on repeat. Human fleets decoded the transmission with cold satisfaction. And on a backwater planet in neutral space, a Vraektar defector whispered to his comrades. They laughed at him. He warned them. They asked what he meant. He looked up, eyes haunted. "You are predators," he said. "But humans are something else.